Lather, rinse, repeat. Another victory for Ohio State. Another comfortable victory for Ohio State as it goes on the road and wins 34-10 at Purdue. It's a weird place, Zach, when you go to West Lafayette. You take any kind of win you can get, right?
You'll take anything. I've had bad experiences at West Lafayette. So, yeah, anytime you can go on there and get a win, especially just on a weird, eerie day in West Lafayette, Indiana, you'll take it for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, so the Buckeyes get out of there with another win. They took an interesting approach. I'll call it that way. As we get rolling here on the Boren Blitz, it is the beat. It is a new week of Ohio State coverage, and this is the 9th time we've got to talk about an Ohio State win in a row for this year. So that's pretty fun. That's pretty good. And we've been told repeatedly to not get bored. And I was really fighting that urge on Saturday, Zach, because that was Ryan Day called it workmanlike. It was businesslike. To me, it felt like a training camp scrimmage. And I say that with all due respect to Purdue. We saw them push Michigan to the brink the week before, play into a 4-quarter game. I thought they fought really hard. But when Ohio State is like emptying the bench and using, true freshmen in the first quarter, I think it was clear what the mission was, which was just get out of this one without too much exertion and without adding any more injuries to the list, which we'll talk about has grown a little bit as they get into November here.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Purdue used all their juice last week in Ann Arbor, Michigan, from that standpoint. So going into this game, I don't think any of us expected this, but early on, you could tell that Ohio State was utilizing this game to get some guys some reps. Obviously, you saw a number of guys out there, whether it be Riley Pettijohn with the first-team defense in the first series. You saw them take Arvell Reese out of the game. Obviously, Carnell Tate didn't play. Multiple offensive linemen didn't play with Ian Moore starting. It was an interesting game. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it felt like a training camp scrimmage. And that's not a bad thing. It's just Ohio State was utilizing this game to get guys some reps, make sure the depth is there for the run, and get in and get out with a victory.
So you and I keep up pretty regular communication, certainly on road games where I am your eyes on the sideline and with the personnel substitution packages. You can help me out with what I'm missing on the broadcast. It works out great. I felt like some sense of frustration from your end on Saturday. Is that the same now that it's in the rearview mirror and Ohio State and Ryan Day seemed to get what he wanted out of it? Like if they had made an emphasis to win this game by 50, I think we all know that they could have. So how has your perspective changed at all from in the moment on Saturday?
I wouldn't say so. I do love the way that you phrase that because it is very right on road games. You're kind of my eyes in the sky, and it's phenomenal. And I love our communication and texting throughout the game. No, you want to know something? I think I woke up just as frustrated. I don't want to say frustrated, like, hey, it's a great victory. You gave up a garbage touchdown late in the game to make it 34-10. Really should have been 34-3. Defense smothered them all game long. But I just feel like if you want to be nitpicky, which when you get into November, you have to be, I think the offensive line was always just one block off, right? 4 guys would do great. 1 guy would just completely miss his assignment, miss his man, get beat, whatever it might be, and that guy makes the play, right? I think we can all talk about frustrating red zone offense sometimes, and it wasn't complete. I did love some of the wrinkles that they did. Yes, CJ Donaldson had 2 touchdowns. Yes, they bring in Lincoln Keenholz and get him into the end zone. It's great. You converted on those. They just didn't look sharp. And I think, again, it goes back to, in those situations, you need all 11 guys doing their job. And it always felt like there was like 1 guy off, right? And if this was early on in the season, you would chalk it up and say, hey, listen, we're going to get better. In November, you have to start being a little bit picky, right? And we can even go to the defense side of the football, and I thought the defense played really good. The first-team defense up until the last drive of the game when Purdue scored, I think, had given up like 120 yards of total offense on the day. But you can be nitpicky about the pass rush, right? Like there was no pressure on Purdue's quarterbacks almost all game long. And yes, we're being nitpicky, but again, it just felt like something was off. And maybe that's West Lafayette, Indiana. Maybe, I know the footing on that field is absolutely terrible. And it seems to be one of those things that whenever Ohio State comes to town, they make it even worse than what it is. The word is frustrating, and it's a great victory. I'm not one of those people that's going to complain about it. It just felt like that game could have been a 60-3 game, right? Could have done it. Maybe the Ohio State coaches didn't want it to be that. We already talked about how they wanted to get a lot of guys in the game and things like that. But guess what? When you're Mylan Graham, when you're Riley Pettijohn, when you're these true freshmen or young players that are getting into the game, the expectation is, hey, listen, we need to go out there and perform just like the first team offense would in this game.
Yeah, and I think that Ohio State, and you know this better than anybody, Zach, you've lived it, that when you get champion grades, when you get into the Woody on Sunday, like they don't grade on a curve. That doesn't exist. You're either a champion or you're not. They're not going to take into account, well, Phillip Daniels didn't play, so Ian Moore, your standard is a little bit less. That's not the way that this works. And I just bring that up as one example of a player who didn't play. I thought Ian Moore made the most of his starting opportunity. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at some of that rotation in it, and I'm on the outside, because I did feel like that was the most go through the motions game that Ohio State has played this year. I also understand why, and I'm not mad about it. I'm not frustrated sitting here right now about it, because Gabe Van Sickle, they wanted to get him reps at guard in place of Tegra. They saw what that looks like. They did the same with Ian Moore. They did that with Riley Pettijohn that you mentioned. They had opportunities where they put Devin Sanchez in the game at corner again. We can go on down the list. A lot of guys got opportunities. Mylan Graham, Bryson Rogers getting back out there at wide receiver with Carnell Tate on the shelf. Like, I think those things are positives in the long run. In the moment, they're going to come with growing pains, because that's what happens when you're doing this for the first time. And they were not going to execute that perfectly. So I tried to just adjust my expectations in the game on Saturday. It's like, let's see what the best of this could look like. And they popped some runs. You saw Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. Maybe we'd have a very different conversation if the first play of the first offensive snap of the game had not been called back with Jeremiah Smith's block in the back. But I'm looking at, I guess there's silver linings. Maybe it's a reach, but I felt like it was a clear approach from Ryan Day. And I asked him about it after the game, and he did not want to talk about it as being a scrimmage or taking anything for granted. And I understand why. I think he was a little bit annoyed at that part of it. But we all saw what happened. That's the way Ohio State acted. And they did go through the motions to get this win. And that's also kind of fine to me.
Yeah. I think you phrased it perfectly when you said, just because backup players or young guys are going into the game, it doesn't mean the standard should shift, right? And you brought up some guys who I actually thought played really good. Ian Moore, I thought, had a great game. Actually, Ryan Day even talked about it after the game of, hey, Ian Moore didn't jump out to me. That tells me he did a good job, right? Had a good game. And so I think it's one of those things where when the standard shouldn't change, and I agree with that, and those young guys know that, it's just kind of like, I would have thought, and maybe it's just one of those things that, to your point, not that they acted like it was a scrimmage, it just came off as a scrimmage, right? And I just think maybe when you're interchanging so many guys and you're substituting so much, we've talked about this for years on this show, that so many guys like a lot of plays, right? They like to get in the flow of the game, and that's a very real thing. And when you're substituting a lot, it's hard to get in that flow, right? Arvell Reese, guess what? You're in for a series and off a series. And that's nothing to talk bad about the Ohio State coaches or this team and their mindset going into this game, because guess what? They saved a lot of plays, a lot of hits with a lot of these starters, knowing that, hey, they're going to make a deep run. They got a lot of guys who aren't used to getting first team reps out there on the field and got a lot of reps where they saw it on film and they're able to coach to that. It just, at the end of the day, yes, they probably don't want you to say that it came off as a scrimmage, but that's the way it came off, right? It was just kind of like, hey, we're going to do what we do. No one's really going to be in the flow of the game. We're going to make some flashy plays here and there. We're going to take care of business, and we're going to get in and get out and hopefully stay healthy, which they did.
Yeah. And I fully recognize that my quote unquote acceptance of that kind of effort on Saturday is probably going to be different because I sit in the press box and you were an Ohio State captain. So you you expect the standard every time out on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, and the only reason why I bring this up, the only reason why I bring this up is because, obviously recruiting has turned into a massive thing. It's gotten bigger and bigger, and the transfer portal has gotten bigger and bigger. And so when you have new guys on the team, or when you have guys that you've heard about being talked about for so long, but then obviously there's older guys, more talented guys out there, when those guys come on the field, you want them to flash. You want them to be like, oh man, what's the next, 2 years look like with these guys on playing for the Buckeyes? And I think I used the word frustration, and maybe it's just like, hey, I wanted Mylan Graham to pop off, right? Granted, he had the drop early in the game, and then you don't really see him for a little bit, and then he comes back later on. Like, you hear about these guys, so you want them to take that moment and have their Jeremiah Smith moment, their Carnell Tate moment, where they just are making acrobatic catches, or they take the ball 80 yards for a touchdown, and they show their speed and agility and everything else. You see, I go back to him because I think the world of this kid, and I think he's great. You see Riley Pettijohn out there. Like, you want him to just maul dudes, right, that we've seen so far this year. And it's kind of one of those things when you don't see, and I'm not saying those guys had bad games, but when you don't see it, you don't see them pop off, it's just kind of like, man, that's what I wanted, right? Like, it was living up to that hype. Like, man, like, I wanted Max Clare to go out there and get a touchdown back at Purdue. Like, come on, like, force feed him the ball. You didn't see it. So it's just kind of like, damn, it's just one of those moments that you have such high expectations for like something to happen and it doesn't happen. And then it's just kind of the monotony of the game where it's just like, okay, Ohio State just dominated the game. It was never in question. They took care of business. And then you just kind of the game ends. You're like, man, I would have loved to see a lot more. Not in a bad way. It's just like, I had these super high expectations for these guys, and I want them to pop off now that they had their chance.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it is, Zach. It is relative disappointment next to super high expectations. It's Christmas morning, and you wanted a pony, and you have tons of great presents to look at under the tree, but ponies, they're not really Christmas presents. And if you let that, cloud your judgment that the pony's not under the tree, like, that's not a healthy way to go through life. Like, it was cool that Mylan Graham got to bounce back and get that catch. Like, I would have loved for him to have scored. I actually very much would have liked to have seen Max Clare get a touchdown in his return to West Lafayette for reasons that we don't have to talk about. There were things that I thought Ohio State could execute on Saturday better. There's no question about that. I don't want to frame this conversation in a way that like Ohio State did nothing wrong on Saturday. They didn't have to. This wasn't a game that required the very best version of Ohio State. And would it have still been okay if we saw that version? Of course it would have been. Like, Julian Sayan's going to be mad about the interception in the red zone and missing Max Clare on that seam throw going the other direction. He had a couple throws that he wanted back. Jeremiah Smith committed a penalty that cost his team. He will feel bad about that. I guarantee you. Riley Pettijohn that you mentioned on that first drive went the wrong way as a spy, and Ryan Brown scrambles for a first down. There were a lot of things that Ohio State did. Again, they are nitpicking, which is kind of what we do on a Monday on the Boren Blitz. But Riley Pettijohn got back out there and flashed. Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith and had a career high 10 catches after that. Julian Sayin only had 6 incompletions. There were still a ton of things that you could feel good about for Ohio State on Saturday, and I think that they should as well. While it's the balancing act, though, because you're also still trying to get better, knowing what's going to happen at the end of the month in the Big House. And then the Indiana game, that's going to be a fist fight if everything goes according to plan in Indianapolis. So you do have to balance both of those things. And I don't know that they will overwhelmingly dwell on the negatives, because there were still positives that they can take out of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think all of this is leading up to making sure that you have depth when you go into the Big House in Ann Arbor, when hopefully you're playing in the Big Ten championship game against Indiana, when you're making a college football playoff run. You saw it last year. You need everyone on that team. You need guys that might not have had much playing time early in the year, but guess what? They need to go out there and make a big play on special teams. They need to go out there and sub for someone if someone's nicked up and whatever it might be. Like, you have to be able to do those things. And if that was the mission on Saturday, to go into Purdue and get guys a lot or more game reps than what they've had and see what they're able to do on tape, by all means, it was super successful, and it was a great day for them. I think that the mission was accomplished, right? You go on there and you win 34-10. The one thing that I think you and I can both agree on is that, guess what? You can't just rely on Julian Saint, Jeremiah Smith, and Carnell Tate on this offense come November 29th in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or the following week against an Indiana team that you already said is going to be an all-out fist fight of a battle, right?
Yep.
You got to make sure this offense line, and so this offense line's clicking. So if you're going out there and you know Josh Padilla is down, you know Phillip Daniels is down, if it's time to get Ian Moore some reps at right tackle, which I think we can all agree he had a very good game, and hey, you want to see what Gabe Van Sickle can do at right guard instead of Tegra, I'm all for it, right? Like, we're all for it. And it goes back to, it's not what we were expecting. So it's a little bit of a curveball. But guess what, man? The curveballs can sometimes be the greatest things, right? You can swing and miss on the first one, and you can swing and miss on the second one. But guess what? When it's 0-2 and they throw the curveball again, and you freaking bang it out of the ballpark, and that's the Big Ten championship, that's the college football playoff run, whatever it might be, and one of those guys comes up massive, like even that we saw last year, right? When last year, when there was a shuffle on the offensive line, and we saw those guys come together, right? Those guys were throwing curveballs all year, and then guess what? They finally hit it out of the park. So if that's what it's going to take to get those guys firing on all cylinders, I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do agree with you fully, because one of the other things that we have talked about on almost every Monday so far is the state of the rushing attack and where it is, and how much more does Ryan Day want from it? How concerned is he about it? I thought, again, was it perfect on Saturday? No, it wasn't. But Bo Jackson going 14 for 75, Isaiah West 9 for 60. I think that's a world where you can live in comfortably. Those numbers would look a lot different if not for the block in the back penalty for Bo Jackson. And maybe this entire game would have looked different. Who knows if they had sent that message just right off the opening snap with Bo Jackson finishing up there in the end zone before it was called back. But, I think that they're fully aware, Zach, and Ryan Day says every year once you get to that week that the team that's going to run the ball better, that's going to defend the run better, is going to win the game. That's been a pretty tried and true formula in that rivalry. And now I tell me if I'm wrong, it did feel like there was a different emphasis on the way Ohio State, and they were doing that without, by the way, two starters at times, tried to run the football. And I thought there were some wrinkles that were encouraging, and not just that Bo Jackson and Isaiah West were leading the way.
Yeah, completely agree. Actually, the first play of the game is something that we haven't really seen in a while, right? You had the two tight ends in the backfield, almost like a split back look with Bo Jackson and the pistol, right? And then you got a pulling guard, you got both tight ends kind of leading up through. Like, it looked a lot like what they went to in the college football playoff last year, where instead of it's such a strict zone scheme, you had some gap scheme, right, where guys are blocking down. You're creating different levels in the defense. You're able to pull guys through. I love the look. The more creative they can be, the better they are, especially when you're playing a very good run defense in the team up north, and a very good run defense in Indiana. And obviously you're going to see great defense in the college football playoff. One thing, though, where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, I know Ryan Day always talks about who can run the football in the last game of the year and all that.
Yeah.
If I'm Ohio State, Julian Saint's throwing that freaking thing 40 times on November 29th.
I actually don't disagree. I don't disagree with that approach at all.
Yeah, listen, he's throwing that thing 40 times, and we're going to spread them out, and and that's why I actually love what Bo Jackson and Isaiah West are able to bring to this offense, because I think when Ohio State's at peak peak efficiency, they are being able to be more spread out. Julian Saint is able to read the defense and they're able to utilize wide receivers. But then again, you got those guys who are athletic, quick in space, like Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. The screenplay on Saturday would have went for a touchdown, and they're great in the passing game if Tegra blocks his man, right? And I think Ohio State is starting to kind of pull some of those things out to show. And I think it's just a glimpse of what's to come when you get more comfortable with those two freshmen in the backfield.
Yeah, no, I would split from the Ryan Day philosophy for the game. I don't do that very often. I think he's a pretty good coach who knows what he's doing, but I would lean into Julian Saint's arm talent and the fact that Jeremiah Smith is the best football player in America, and then potentially having a healthy Carnell Tate again by that point. The best way to beat Michigan at the end of this month is to throw the football with these guys, because they're legitimate Heisman Trophy candidates. Julian Saint, rose up to the number one top spot in the betting boards last week. And then I think what happened at Purdue actually really helps Jeremiah Smith's candidacy, because this wasn't a situation where Carnell was on the other side and, to help carry the load. Jeremiah had to do it despite double and triple coverage. The touchdown throw down the seam, I think he shifted out of the backfield into the slot. Then he just runs right past three defenders, gets an absolute laser beam from Julian Saint. That play, in a nutshell, is what the identity of this Ohio State offense should be, in my opinion.
For sure. And anytime, and that's why even getting the running game going and showing some of those things, because you can play off of that play action. And that's what you saw Ohio State do last year towards the end of the year. That play action, those deep balls, just hold those safeties the smallest amount. And when you've got Jeremiah Smith, when you've got Carnell Tate, even Brandon Ennis, right? That split second of a hold from those safeties, those guys are so fast and so athletic, man. They can take the top off that defense. And that's what you saw. It was a little bit of a play action, a little bit of a roll. It was like the in a way, Rose Bowl game all over again, where you saw Howard connect to Jeremiah and break the game open. It's kind of the same thing, man. And any time those guys have a threat to go deep and those safeties are flat-footed at all, it's game over, right? Yeah. And I know I was texting with you on Saturday. I said, I would take one shot downfield every single possession. Doesn't matter. I would do it. Just because that's how skilled those guys are. They can make contested catches. They can just blow guys off, from a speed standpoint. They can do so many different things. The other thing that you saw a little bit on Saturday, not a ton, but Ryan Day talked about it before the Purdue game last week. When they want to take the top off this offense and speed it up, they will, right? Yeah. And I think they're averaging just over 60 plays a game on offense, I believe, something like that.
Yeah,
like not a lot. When you go to Ann Arbor, Michigan, when you go to the Big Ten championship game, that offense number is going to be aim for 75 plays a game, right? And when you're adding those extra 15 plays in the explosiveness of this offense, that can completely blow a game open.
And it's hard to imagine what some of those offensive numbers could look like, because as you see what Jeremiah and Julian are doing right now, these numbers are coming with fewer opportunities than Fernando Mendoza is getting or Ty Simpson is getting in Alabama. Like, if they dial it up at the end of the year, right during championship push and playing for gold pants, playing for a Big Ten trophy, and then in the middle of the Heisman campaign, look out for that. But that will be a conversation for a couple of weeks from now. Let's wrap this up. Let's be done with Purdue week, and let's get a 3-and-out from Zach Boren.
So, third Buckeye Leaf winner, I'm just going to go to the first team defense. And when I say that is because leading up to, and I'm allowed to do that, Austin, but leading up
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
Correct. Leading up to that final drive, like I said, I think they were giving up like 129 yards of total offense. Yes, we can nitpick the pass rush and do those things, but when it comes to playing a sound defense, when it comes to rallying to the football, when it comes to making plays when they need to be made, getting off on third down, doing those things, this defense continuously does it, and they answer the call. And they are so diverse in the looks that they're able to give. They're so diverse in their personnel. This defense, man, it's scary how good they are. And to think that not that they can get better, but just that, hey, listen, they can make even more explosive plays to really turn games over, whether it be strip sacks, whether it be interceptions, fumble recovery, forced fumbles, whatever it might be. Like, that is still out there. And when that starts to turn, watch out, because this defense can literally win games on their own. Number 2, Buckeye Leaf stickers, Caden McDonald, right? And I'm going to single him out from the defense because what he does inside, it's just
he's
nasty.
A monster. He's a
monster. He's nasty. He dominates centers and guards all day long, plays in the backfield. Anytime you need a big run stop, it's done, and you look up and it's Caden McDonald, man. The dude fights his tail off every single play, doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, but the dude is a monster, just absolute monster. Number 1 Buckeye Leaf sticker, earners, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, this offense, when you're down a bunch of starters and you're down Carnell Tate, what does Julian Sain do when a big play needs to be made? He just dials it up to number 4. And time after time after time, he makes unbelievable catches and unbelievable plays in the most opportune times that this offense needs someone to step up. And Jeremiah Smith, man, I don't even know what to say. 25 touchdowns in 25 career games, 10 total receptions, 137 total yards on receiving yards on Saturday. Man, we are lucky to have you. Buckeye fans need to realize, like, hey, don't take this kid for granted. Every single week, it's a treat to watch. And I just can't wait to see how Jeremiah Smith's year ends this year, because I think people finally have some respect on his name, whereas in last year, he should have won multiple awards and didn't. This year, those awards are going to come his way. And guess what? He still has another year after this.
That is scary for the rest of the country to think about. And another scary thought, Ohio State can still play a lot better. And they won comfortably on the road in the Big Ten yet again on Saturday. It was 34-10 over Purdue. Next up, a primetime game. Zach's getting that tailgate ready already for Saturday in the Horseshoe as UCLA rolls in. You'll be there 8 a.m. getting ready for that primetime kickoff.
Probably. Yeah, no doubt. I'll be ready, man. Old school Big Ten Pac-12 matchup, man. It's like the Rose Bowl game of, the 80s, back when UCLA was a contender.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's a throwback to the 80s, well, except for a November night game in the Horseshoe, because that's a little bit of a new thing, but can't wait for that. Busy week ahead on the Austin and Birm Show and the Beat. We will be at the live show later on at Roosters, so stick around for all of that and coverage all week long for game week number 10. Win number 9 in the bank for Ohio State, a comfortable win over Purdue, and on to the next one. Thanks so much, as always, to former Ohio State captain. I guess you're always a captain, if that's the case. Zach Boren.
I think so, maybe.
Yeah, once a Buckeyes captain, always a Buckeyes.
You can't take that title away from me.
I've never taken away. Buckeyes captain, Zach Boren. I am merely Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again on a Boren Blitz next Monday. See ya.